Welcome to the opening ceremony of the International Space University Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program 2018. I am Omar Hatamli, the Program Director. This year actually marks the 7th anniversary of the program. Since it came here first in 2011, we've had so many amazing programs happening here in Adelaide. And we are really happy for the partnerships we have developed and the collaboration between the International Space University and the University of South Adelaide. This year actually is going to be one of the highest participants we've had. We had close to 50 participants from 15 different countries. So this is the first time actually we have such a high number of participants. And that's to the collaboration and the encouragement and the support of the government here in Australia as well. These participants will learn and share the knowledge about all aspects of the International Space University. And every year, every program, we try to enhance the experience and deliverables to our attendees and participants. This year, for the first time, we have participants designing, launching, rocket launches actually. We'll have themed days for CubeSats, which is something of enormous importance. A lot of startup has started to be developed into that field. So we'd like to acquaint and teach participants everything about that and even build some prototype and learn about the sequence of launching. So it will be very, very interesting for them. We've also added some disruptive technology talks, which is kind of TEDx talks, to talk about some of the hot topics technologically to have most of the people acquainted with that. Also, in addition to the participants, the value of hosting the program here in Adelaide and Mossel Lakes, would like to share some of these insights with the local community, especially the young generation kids, because that's going to be the future scientists, the future engineers. So the more they get exposed to these science, engineering, business, legal aspects of space, hopefully we'll do as much as possible to have them interested in these interesting fields. So we're definitely looking forward to a very rewarding experience to all the participants that we have this year. And now I would like to introduce the class of 2018. In the ISU tradition, these participants will enter behind the flag of the country. To begin the procession, I would like to welcome the participants from the host country, Australia. Bulgaria. Chile. China. Germany. India. Ireland. Italy. Mexico. New Zealand. Pakistan. Sri Lanka. Trinidad and Tobago. United Kingdom. And the United States of America. Please join me in welcoming the International Space University Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program Class of 2018. But now, we are privileged to have the permission from the organizers of the 2017 International Aeronautical Congress in Adelaide to show you part of the welcoming to country from the spectacular opening ceremony they had at this convention on September 25th of this year.
That song, you can hear the Yiraki from a remote community in the Northern Territory called Milingimbi. That Yiraki song is now 9 billion kilometres from where we are. That voice is of the spirit of this place, travelling through time and space. A song for the spirits to set them home. Okay. Pay our respects to the songmen, the people who acknowledge. So we share this ceremony with you as we venture out beyond the stars. We've already come from there. We have stories. We talk about the falling stars. So we greet and welcome you all in the 4 directions, the 4 winds, to the 68th International Astronomical Gathering in my country here, Thailand, Marina Buddingate. Greetings, friends.
We acknowledge the Ghana people, who are the traditional custodian of this land. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. We are honored today to have with us the Honourable Martin Hamilton Smith, Minister for Defence and Space Industries, who is also representing the Premier of South Australia, to opening the program this afternoon. In addition, we would like to welcome Professor Tanya Monroe, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of South Australia, Professor Walter Peters, President of the International Space University, Professor Simon Beecham, Pro Vice-Chancellor, Division of IT Engineering and Environment at the University of South Australia. Also would like to welcome Mr. Richard Price, CEO of Defence SA and the South Australian Space Industry, Mr. Michael Davis, Chair, Space Industry Association of Australia, program staff, participants, and our many friends and supporters of the program. Thank you for all being here. An undertaking of scope of this program will be impossible without the coordinated effort of many generous organizations and dedicated individuals. I'd like to thank the many organizations that are making this year's program possible. Thank you to our collaborative partners and host institute of the University of South Australia, University of South Australia Vice-Chancellor, Professor David Lloyd, and the UNESA staff for the 25 years partnerships with ISU. ISU's Southern Hemisphere program would not be possible without the tireless work of my co-director, Dr. Adi James, and the lead organizer, Ms. Amanda Johnston. Thank you, and you are without you, this program would be very difficult to do, especially we're having people from France and here, so thanks a lot for your support and effort in programming this thing here. A special thank also to Mr. Stephen Maglieri of Serafino Wines, McLaren Val for, again, agreeing to host our balloon launch and also providing the wine and the reception following this event. Mr. Simon Bergs and his staff from the Adelaide Convention Centre for generously hosting this ceremony. We're also grateful for the hard work of the UNSA folks that have worked and how Worldly Adelaide, Mossel Lakes, and South Australia have all welcomed us. I'd also like to thank our major sponsors and partners, the Government of South Australia, through its newly established South Australia Space Industry Centre, for its general support in providing 5 full scholarships this year. The Sir Ross, Sir Keith Smith Fund, and its generous ongoing support for our program. The Secure World Foundation and its Executive Director, Dr. Michael Simpson, for its long-standing support for this program, and this year for the support of our team projects. I would like to thank NASA for its ongoing support of the program as well, the European Space Agency for its ongoing support program, including scholarship support for participants from Europe, the Heinlein Trust and its loan support for deserving students, the City of Salisbury and for its support for our public events program and for the current space images exhibiting in the Mossel Lake Center. For supporting our stratospheric balloon project, we'd like to thank Serafino Wines, Anthonian Australian Services, the Amateur Radio Experimenters Group from Adelaide, South Australian Space Industry Centre, and Nova Systems. Scholarships are also a critical component of graduate education, and we are fortunate to have a number of generous benefactors. The Government of South Australia, the Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund, the European Space Agency, Italian Space Agency, the Ray Williamson Fund, Study Adelaide, Asia Pacific Satellite Communications Council, and Astroscale. Congratulations to our scholarship winners, and thanks to all our generous scholarship supporters. Our first speaker today is Professor Simon Beecham, who is the Pro Vice-Chancellor heading the Division of IT, Engineering, and the Environment. Prior to that appointment, Professor Beecham was the Director of the UNESA Center for Waste Management and Reuse. The Division of IT, Engineering, and the Environment was fundamental to the collaborative effort in developing the Southern Hemisphere program with ISU. In his specialist area of research, Professor Beecham, as Chief Investigator, has been awarded 7 Australian Research Council Discovery, Linkage, and Life grants in the past 10 years, and he has 3 current ARC grants. His research is outcome-focused, and in particular, he believes that we need to be more sustainable in the management of our water resources. He has also been the author of industry-available tools such as Siphon software program. Siphon software program has been also been used to design the siphonic roof water harvesting system at many significant Australian locations, including the Sydney Olympic Stadium, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, and the new Adelaide Oval. I'm pleased to introduce Professor Simon Beecham.
Thank you, Omar. The Honourable Martin Hamilton-Smith, Professor Walter Peters, Professor Tanya Monroe, Mr Michael Davis, ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure in formally welcoming you to the 7th Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme hosted by the University of South Australia. I extend a warm welcome to everyone taking part in this year's programme and to those who have travelled so far to reach us. A warm welcome to South Australia. A particular thank you to all the sponsors that Omar mentioned, without which we could not hold such a spectacular event. We appreciate your collaboration and support and look forward to it in the future. The truly global reach of this programme is highlighted not only by the flags that stand beside me, but by the fact that 76% of the participants, and we have 50 participants this year, the highest number ever, 76% of those have travelled from overseas to join us. For the first time of participating in this programme. I sincerely wish that you all enjoy your Australian experience, and particularly your experience at the University of South Australia and ISU. The Division of Information Technology, Engineering and the Environment has enjoyed a very close working relationship with the International Space University in the creation and evolution of this Space Studies programme. Indeed, our own academic and research aspirations are very much focused on the future, and UniSA's largest research institute, the Future Industries Institute, was established to build on the knowledge and capacity in competitive research across 4 strands. And these are minerals and resources engineering, energy and advanced manufacturing, environmental science and engineering, and biomaterials engineering and nanomedicine. Perhaps one day, researchers from the Future Industries Institute will work with students on this programme to perfect water use and water sustainability practices on Mars or some other really important space problem. Michael Davis told me just before this that they've just found water on Mars in the form of ice, and extraction of that could change the future expeditions to Mars. The Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme was originally developed with the support and funding from the federal government's Australian Space Research Programme. This enabled the collaboration between the ISU, the International Space University, and ourselves, the University of South Australia, to create a successful professional development programme that is now fully self-sustaining. UniSA's relationship with ISU dates back to the early 1990s, when it became an affiliate of ISU through the initiative of Professor Mike Miller, the then head of our Institute of Telecommunications Research, which still sits in our division of ITEE. Since this time, our relationship has evolved to include staff and student exchanges, hosting the ISU's 9-week Space Studies programme in Adelaide in 2004 as a major project by all 3 South Australian universities, but led by UniSA, and hosting a module of ISU's Executive MBA programme in 2011. So it's a long history of collaboration. And now the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme, which was first held in 2011, is in its 7th iteration and is highly successful. We also offer industry-leading academic programmes in engineering, information technology and science, with a specialised joint UniSA-ISU graduate graduate certificate in space studies, which is directly linked to the Space Studies programme. The 2018 Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme will focus on space applications, space policy and space services, while giving a well-rounded overview of the principles and concepts involved in space science, space systems engineering and technology, space business and management, and space legal and regulatory issues. Over the next 5 weeks, participants will gain insights and share experiences through a range of lectures, workshops and presentations. There will also be several free evening events to which the public are invited. To the participants, we hope that your time with us and your study and activities with the programme will be rewarding and exciting. And on behalf of the University of South Australia, I wish you all the very best in this year's programme. Please now join me in welcoming the Honourable Martin Hamilton-Smith, Minister for Investment and Trade, Minister for Small Business, Minister for Health Industries, Minister for Veteran Affairs, and of particular importance to us today, Minister for Defence and Space Industries. In welcoming the Minister, I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for his 21 years of public service in South Australia, and especially for his support of the space industry in South Australia.
Thank you, Simon. And could I, on behalf of the Premier, just express my gratitude for being here today to welcome you all as Australia's first Space Industries Minister, and I think the only one in Australia at the moment. It is indeed an honour. Could I also acknowledge Walter Peters, Professor Tanya Munro, Professor Simon Beecham and Michael Davis, and all the other dignitaries that are here today. This might scare some of you, but I'm old enough to remember the landing on the moon in 1969. I was 15 years old. It was a very exciting time. After watching the landing, I went out into the garden and joined our gardener to water the plants. And we got into a conversation about how great it was that we'd landed on the moon. And I said to him, he's a very old gentleman, you know, isn't it fantastic? Look what humankind has done. And he said to me, yes, Martin, and when I was your age, they hadn't invented the motor car yet. I said, well, how old are you? Thinking he was about 60, because when you're 15, people look very old, but they're actually not. And he said, well, I'm 86. It's a strapping looking 86. He was in great shape. And I started to do the maths, and it was 1969, he was 86. I worked out that he was born in the 1880s. And I remember having one of those light flash moments as a 15-year-old. He'd come from the horse and buggy to the moon. I remember thinking, well, I'm starting with the moon. So where are we heading when I'm 86? It really was an extraordinary journey that generation undertook, particularly with respect to machines. And here we are today talking about a similar journey. It's just that the machines are far more sophisticated and far more complex than they were in the 1880s. Now, South Australia is very proud to be home to this wonderful space program, hosted by the International Space University and the University of South Australia. Well done. The only university in the world to be part of this joint education venture. This 5-week live-in intensive program has a global reputation for providing a quality education opportunity in key space knowledge areas. Welcome to the state that was the third place in the world to launch a satellite into orbit after the United States and Russia. A state that has seen atomic testing, a state that was an early pioneer in the space race. It's great to see so many aspiring young space professionals from around Australia and from around the globe. I've travelled as the Space Industries Minister already to meet with a lot of space agencies from India and Japan through to Italy and France and the United States, NASA, and even to smaller countries with space ambitions in the Middle East and elsewhere. And it's a pleasure to see South Australia at the centre of such an exciting industry. Now, the moon landing was more than Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walking around the Sea of Tranquility. To understand its real significance, let's revisit the target set by John F. Kennedy in 1961 when he urged this grand international effort. After the successful orbit of the Earth by US astronaut Alan Shepard, Kennedy declared space is open to us now. He laid out the task. First was the commitment to land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. Second was to accelerate the development of rocket and fuel technologies. The third was Kennedy's task of accelerating the use of satellites for worldwide communications. Kennedy predicted that satellites would enable people in remote areas in the Earth to exchange messages. Well, hasn't it just gone so far beyond his vision? Fourthly, he committed to developing a satellite system for worldwide observation. So much of that vision is now that upon which we depend, and it was developed 56 years ago. Lockheed Martin and SpaceX have mapped out a commitment to travel and to live on Mars. It was very exciting to hear their respective presentations here just a few months ago at the International Congress. They're quite different concepts. It'll be interesting to see who gets there first and how it unfolds. This heralds a new era in interplanetary travel. While Kennedy could see the impact of space travel on global communications and associated innovations, the space industry has identified new opportunities for the future. The first challenge and opportunity is the science of rocketry and fuel. The second is the question of whether there will be a person landing on Mars or an intelligent machine. Artificial intelligence, machines that can perceive the environment and act accordingly, will be a key factor in how we get to Mars, how we land on Mars, and what happens on Mars. The third, as a consequence of the second, cyber security will be developed to counter attacks on the new technology as AI advances. I must say that developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning, robotics and biotechnology must surely be, when you put them together, one of the great adventures and one of the great risks we face going forward. And I'm surprised that we're not having a broader international and national conversation about the changes those technologies are about to deliver to every country represented in this room today. Of course, there will be a broad spectrum of industries that feed into the processes of interplanetary travel. Food and water, the very basics of agriculture, will be the basics of life on another planet. These are areas where South Australia has achieved great things. Quite a number of Nobel Prize laureates working in those spaces have been born here. As some of you would know, there's already an international potato centre that's running experiments to see if potatoes can grow in the atmospheric conditions of Mars. Good luck with that one. Senior writer Peter Ward reported that results have been promising as scientists replicate the Mars atmosphere and grew a few spuds. Synthetic food is another opportunity. The concept of molecular construction of food might not seem appetising, but work is being done in the area. Could we generate atmospheric change to make Mars more habitable? Can we generate oxygen supplies using custom microbes? Can we use 3D printers of the future to play a significant role in helping us to achieve these things? A company called TechShot is working on a project to 3D print a human heart in space. This is health and advanced manufacturing working in parallel to meet challenges and to create great opportunities. And South Australia is ready for these challenges and for these opportunities and to play its part. The South Australian Government is transforming the economy from old manufacturing to new, and space is very much at the part of that. So is food and wine science, so is renewable energy science, so are health industry sciences, advanced manufacturing. We're building $90 billion of submarines and frigates and air warfare destroyers here that incorporate many of the cutting-edge technologies that we'll see deployed and are seeing deployed in the space industries. We're at the forefront of renewable energy sciences in particular. Solar arrays, solar thermal storage systems, the biggest lithium-ion battery in the world. All of these things are happening right here. Elon Musk has been here 3 times this year, dealing not only with space but also these renewable energy challenges that we're facing, with Tesla at the forefront of them in collaboration with us. And as these things are pioneered, they're being taken up around the world. As you've heard, South Australia is the first place in Australia to have its own dedicated space industry centre. A national agency is following. SASIC will develop a space industry cluster. We're doing that now. Some money's being deployed to make that happen. Local companies like Nova Aerospace and Innovor Technologies, Fleet Space Technologies, Mariota and Newman are at the forefront of this exciting industry. I'm sure you'll be meeting some of those companies. There's currently about 800 people actively engaged in the South Australian space sector. It includes more than 460 employees working directly in local space companies. There are many thousands across Australia, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it could be bigger. South Australia's space industry is expecting sustained growth, and we're determined to see that happen. This includes 6 new companies being established in the last 18 months, and the government's committed to our future space workforce. Many of them will come from young people presently within our universities. We have a $4 million Space Innovation Fund which is being deployed, and following a global call for proposals, we'll soon announce the successful bid to run our Space Accelerator program. And now is the time for us to accelerate our journey into space. The South Australian Government is committed to partner with the consortium of space startups to establish a Space Innovation Complex, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about these things while you're here. Now, I mentioned to you that we were an early starter in space. In 1947, the Woomera Rocket Range, established in South Australia at the Arcuna Plateau, 300 kilometres north of here, started work with the British and other European governments. Over 4,000 short-range missiles were tested there between 1947 and 1980. And last year was the 50th anniversary of the Australian-built RESAT launch at Woomera in 1967. In 1966, South Australian-born Dr. Andy Thomas made his first trip into space on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. He logged a total of 178 days in space throughout his career. The Cooperative Research Centre for Satellite Systems was established in 1988 with an engineering design centre and a ground station in Adelaide at the University of South Australia. But now we are ready for the new chapters. It's another reason why we welcome all of you right here today. This is an extremely exciting time around the world and here in Australia for the space industry as we look to take new steps on our journey together. I look forward very optimistically to the day when I'm an 86-year-old tending the garden. Don't want to get there too quickly, by the way, because I look forward to having a conversation with a 15-year-old then about my journey, and who knows where we will be in that distant, far-off future when I'm 86. Many of you in this room are going to see that transformation unfold. As I go around the world, some people tell me they're quite concerned about the pace of change. Science always concerns people about the pace of change, but there is no alternative other than to embrace it. Science is going to determine the future shape of humanity, our economy, and everything else we do. Never, or more than ever before, science being born in our universities and in companies is going to shape the way of things into the future. I think one of the greatest challenges for we humans is going to be to keep up with the machines. And the space industry is going to have to help us on that journey, because the machines, I already carry one of these, so do you. I haven't got a clue how it works, but my life is almost dependent upon it. The machines that are coming this century, we're going to struggle to understand, and it is industries like space and the scientists that are part of it that are going to help us to optimise that great opportunity and manage the many risks involved. So I commend you for being here. Welcome to South Australia. By the way, while you're here, walk around, have a look about. We happen to believe wine and food and space go well together, so you'll have some great meals while you're here. It's a very exciting part of the world. Enjoy it. And when you go back to your parent countries, please tell your friends to come and see us. We love hosting you. We're very internationally engaged, and I hope you enjoy your time here in Australia and in Adelaide. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for joining us this afternoon. I'm pleased to introduce next Professor Walter Peters. Professor Peters is President of the International Space University. He's also a professor in business and management. Before that, actually, he was also the Dean for the International Space University. Professor Peters came from the ESA, from the European Space Agency, where he actually was handling project control and coordination of the Hermes project at the Euromir flights with Russia, among other things. Professor Peters served as the head of the coordination office of the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, and also as a lecturer at the Technical University of Delft, and the visiting professor in nonprofit marketing at the Catholic University in Louvain. Please welcome Professor Peters.
Thank you very much, Omar, and congratulations with the good job of welcoming everybody. That resolves my part of that duty. I still would like to have a special word about the minister, which I understood after 21 years in politics, which is quite an achievement, is now building up a new career, and but did a lot for space. We know it, the Australians probably know it, but it's also known outside of Australia. So your name will be remembered as the man who brought space into South Australia, I'm 100% sure. It's a pleasure for me to meet again a number of friends from UniSA, with whom we have a lot of contact over the last few years. I will come back on that. So I saw many, Tanya Monroe to start, Simon Beecham. I think I also saw Brenton Dancy somewhere. I saw Andy somewhere. So many people, AD, that we are happy to meet again this year. And then, of course, participants, staff, welcome to this biggest program that we ever had. It was already mentioned, 50 participants. It would be interesting to make a curve and see when we reach the 100. That will be in a few years. It has already been mentioned by the minister when he alluded to Apollo. A lot of things came out of the space world. I will give you a list in one of the lectures of all sorts of things that came from space and is now in daily life, things that you have in your pockets, things that you have in your car. The disadvantage a little bit is that we think that everything comes from the space world. That's also not true. And I'm going to give you one example. A few years ago, our friends in NASA started to use the word of incremental development and incremental steps. But that's a management technique whereby you every time, like you went to the moon in Apollo, you go a little bit further, you go still further, you go around the moon, you go close to the moon, and you go to the moon. So you go every time in steps. Now, incremental approaches is very old. That would surprise most of you. And one of the most famous people who did incremental approaches, and unfortunately there are no Portuguese here, I think. No, I didn't see the Portuguese flag. It's a pity. Because one of the explorers who started with this incremental was a prince in Portugal, which we call now Henry the Navigator. Did anybody hear about Henry the Navigator? Yes, I see a few. Good. In fact, his real name was Infante Henrique. Infante is prince in Portuguese. So Infante Henrique. And in fact, he was the first one, we thought for many years, and that's what we learned in history books, who started to say, okay, if I'm going to go very far with my ships, I'm going to go first to an island and see how it works, and I come back. And then I go further and see how it works. And like in the space world, he realized that the ships were not 100% correct to go very far. So he changed the ships a little bit, and he at the end he produced a ship which we know a little bit from history, which is called the Caravel, which is a light ship. He also, it was mentioned, I think by Simon, he also looked at food. He thought, well, how do we preserve food if we go on for months and months to sea? So he did a lot for that sort of incremental steps, going from one, then finally he ended up at Madeira and the African coast. And that's what I learned in history. But what recently more and more you hear is that he was not the first one. In fact, the first one who did that was a Chinese admiral. And now the Chinese are going to correct it, because I'm going to pronounce the name probably wrong. Do you know Admiral Zheng He? No? Yeah, you should. You should. He was a very famous explorer, and he did a lot of interesting trips in the same way. He did, I believe, 8 expeditions, and every time he went further. So first he went to Bali, and he went to a number of islands. He learned, and then he went further and further. He went to Africa, Aden. There is also a story that he, with his last ships, that he even landed in America, because they found a number of maps that was in the news a few years ago where it looks like he had the coast of America. And that For that, he developed a number of ships which were spectacular in those days, 126 meters long and up to 500 passengers. That is, in those days, that was quite a lot. Now, you can all imagine that if he really has been in America and he would have conquered America, the geopolitical situation would have been a little bit different now. I think ITAR would have looked a little bit different for the Minister of Defense. So, but he didn't stay there, unfortunately, maybe. But so the incremental approach from NASA was not invented by the Portuguese, but was invented by you, by the Chinese. So, and why do I mention this now? Like, it's not a little story. It is a little story, but I want to bring it back to also what Simon has said. Also, our approach from ISU with UNESA was incremental, and with South Australia. Indeed, we started in 2004, thanks to our alumnus, Michael Davis, who is an ISU alumnus, and we did here a summer program. But of course, as Western and Northern Hemisphere people, we thought, oh, it's going to be summer in Australia in July. You forget it. It was winter here. So all the students came here with bat suits and flip-flops and everything, and realized it was winter. So we also incrementally learned. So in 2011, we started a real summer program, but now we came in January. So be happy. I hope you have your swimming suits and everything with you, because it's going to be pretty warm. So we also work incrementally. We also learn. In 2017, together with Professor Monroe, with Tanya, we went another incremental step, and we signed an agreement for another 5 years of continuation of this program, but also for the next step. And it will probably please the minister to know that we adapt a little bit our program, because we want to be sure that out of this program, many of these people come out with ideas and have ideas for startups and for incubators. So we have adapted the program a little bit in that sense. So you see, increments are everywhere. They are not only there in Apollo, they are also here. They are also here in this room, and that's what we're trying to do. We are here very happy. I can speak on behalf of the International Space University. It's a little bit like in 1855, a French general, when he conquered Sebastopol, he said, "J'y suis, j'y reste," which I can translate in Australian like, we are now here in Australia and we will stay here. So thank you very much for having us and for hosting us. I can assure you, you will not get rid of us very easy, because we are happy here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. All right, I would like to thank again the Honourable Martin Hamilton-Smith for attending today. Our thanks to our speakers today, Professor Simon Beecham and Professor Walter Peters. I would also like to thank all the attending today for opening ceremony, and on behalf of our host at the University of South Australia and International Space University, we would like to invite you to reception in the adjacent foyer. Well, now that the speeches are over, it's time for the rocket science to begin. So I hereby declare open the International Space University Southern Hemisphere International Space University for 2018 open. Welcome, and hopefully you enjoy this program here. Thank you very much.